Welcome to the Valley Hoops Insider Podcast, part of the Valley Hoops Insider website. I'm Harry Schroeder, editor of the site, host of the show. And you can see my good friend right there, Paul Oren. And he covers the Valparaiso Beacons. I'm still getting used to calling them Beacons. But he's done it a long time for the Northwest Indiana Times. Things are shifting. Before we get to that, Paul, just thanks, man, for hanging out with me today.
Hey man, it's great. It's early. Well, not necessarily early, but it's Thursday morning, and it feels early because I drove back from Bloomington last night and then sat down to a blank screen and tried to figure out how to encapsulate the game that Valpo had played last night. And so
at least it went overtime for you.
Hey, so we'll get to this, but overtimes don't bother me anymore.
Right.
I don't have a deadline.
Deadlines, right.
So that said, Valpo's really testing the metal a little bit in my patience with the overtime thing. Again, I'm not saying my patience as in, they don't owe me anything, but make the games entertaining, and overtime is fun. And it was fun. This overtime a little bit different than the Indiana State overtime from the other day, because both teams just looked exhausted in overtime, and Antonio Reeves won the game for him. And then, I should say, Mark Freeman to Liam McChesney won the game
pass,
for them.
Wasn't it? Wow.
Great pass. Oh, amazing play. Kudos to Illinois State for fighting through to win that game. And Antonio Reeves, I was watching a guy, I don't know, he's going to make money playing basketball somewhere. I don't know where, but he's going to make money playing it somewhere.
When you can throw it in, you can make money, man. That's
absolutely.
If I could have thrown it in, I would have made money, no doubt.
I threw it out of bounds, and and so I got cut.
So I'm going to back up, and we're going to walk through a journey today. A long time with Northwest Indiana Times and the beat writer there for all kinds of things related to Valparaiso and particularly basketball. That's how you and I connected and became friends and colleagues. But recently, you made a career shift to a new thing. Tell us about the new thing briefly, but I want to ask why you moved away from traditional media.
Yeah, the new thing is called the Victory Bell. It's called the victorybell.substack.com. That's the website. I'm working hard to shorten that to try to just get the victorybell.com, but let me tell you, somebody else owns it. They bought it 3 weeks ago, like the day before. Someone must have known I was doing this, and I've entered into negotiations so I can make it a little bit easier, because saying the victorybell.substack.com is tough, but it's the Victory Bell. For people who don't know about Valpo, Valpo's had this giant bell that they have right outside the Athletics Recreation Center that people at a lot of teams, after they win a game, they'll run out there, they'll ring it. The kids on graduation day, it's like that's where everybody meets. Like everybody says, to your families, meet me at the Victory Bell. And that has become kind of a rallying cry a little bit. It's not mainstream, right? But it's like a rallying cry of meet me at the Victory Bell, or the Victory Bell kind of means an ending of a successful journey. You're going to go ring the bell after you've won a game, or you aced an exam, or you did whatever. And so it's a bit ironic, because the Victory Bell now is the beginning of a new journey for me, and a journey that I'm really, really excited to go on. But this is this site is it's all about Valparaiso University athletics. Obviously, I'll put in some Missouri Valley Conference stuff as I've done in the past. But it's not just basketball, and that's why it's not called Union Street Hoops, which is what the podcast was.
I love that name, though.
No, thank you. I love it too, but I want to. Valpo's got a football team, a non-scholarship football team that we've always kind of ignored in legacy media. To a degree, we would do the we'll go out there on a Saturday and we'll write a game story and all that, but we never really got to know the players. And from that perspective, we had no kind of agency. We had no connection. We had no ground to stand on when we tried to report on this stuff. And whether or not the grand Northwest Indiana community even cares about Valpo football, I do know that there's a pocket of people who do. And it's a Division I football program. So I'm going to cover that. The softball team starts their season today. And I can't tell you, Harry, how many times I was asked, hey, can you do a season preview on a team that were 25 games into their year, just because the way that it would fit on that. So I'm going to cover Valpo University athletics in the manner in which I want to do it. I think maybe I've earned that, I guess. And maybe, and so that's my thought.
So part of that is you want to be able to do that in a real extensive way in all the various different sports, but moving away from the traditional newspaper there that provides both limitations and opens doors, of course, to you as well. But some of the limitations, and you mentioned one of them last night, the game's over. Now I've got to figure out how to report on this. Oh, wait, the deadline's in 4 minutes. I can't do a good job. I mean, is that some of the motivation?
Yeah, Harry, this was a really hard decision. And I wrote about this. I have, every time when Twitter, when I'm at a basketball game, I'll take a picture of the jump ball and I tweet out the ball is tipped, mainly because One Shining Moment is my favorite song. And so the ball is tipped is the opening song. And so the first piece that I wrote for this new story was called The Ball is Tipped. And in that, I walked through so I'm 41 years old. So I am old enough to come from a time when analog media was really the thing. Look behind you here. You got a bunch of books there. I got a bunch of books behind me. We're book readers. That's what we do. But I'm young enough to also understand and remember, I kind of grew up with the internet a little bit. I was 14 when my mom got America Online. It was the day that Cordell Stewart threw a big Hail Mary to beat Michigan. And I remember that night, I read the story about that game on my computer. I didn't have to wait for the newspaper the next day. And I just remember, I was 14. I just remember being blown away because I was the guy who would always go, I would find the quarters in the couch cushion, so to speak. That's the myth, but I would just steal it from my mom's coin jar. And I would go a half mile down the street to our newspaper vending machine that we had. And I would buy the newspaper and I would memorize every stat that was in the newspaper. It didn't matter what the game was. I just loved the idea that something would be not only delivered to my house, or I could go to a place and I could find all the news that was fit to print. And there's something really romantic about that. And it's gone away to a degree, right? We used to have 16-page sports sections. Now it's 4-page sports sections. And I'm not just saying the Northwest Indiana Times. I want to be very clear. I have no ill will with them at all. It's the system that I was frustrated with. I'd get frustrated when I would go to our newspaper's website when I was there, and it would be all these national stories. The Atlanta Braves, when the Braves won the World Series, the day the Braves, I think, won the World Series, we had a bunch of high school big sectional championship matches. And I remember going to the newspaper website that day and it was all stuff about the Braves. Nobody is going to a local newspaper site to do that stuff, right? And that was the very beginning of that. And there was some other stuff along the way of, again, differences of opinion of kind of stuff that was being covered. But I no ill will with the people who were making those choices, because the what we're looking for has changed. Now it's page clicks. Now it's we got to drive that. And so the nuance of going to a game and writing about the competition kind of got stripped away. And now it was go to the game, find a heart-tugging, emotional story. And those are great stories. But it was go to a game, find a kid's mom who's a frontline COVID nurse or something like that, and talk to the kid and see if you can go in the stands and talk to the parent. And, oh, by the way, you've got to keep stats because we need to type up the box score, but we don't really care about the game, but we care about, and it was layered and layered and layered. So I said, you know what, I gotta stop. I need a break. And I pulled away from that, and I still read the paper every day and will forever. But I wanted to do something a little bit different.
So it's the victorybell.substack.com. Tell us, before we talk about the site itself, what's the Substack thing? That's just
Harry,
platform?
Yeah, great question. So when I decided that I was going to shift to my own thing, I thought long and hard, I have hosted a couple websites in the past. Like I went to China once for a work thing, and it was amazing. And I blogged about everything, and then the site crashed, and I lost all of that stuff. And it was a site that I had hosted through WordPress and a domain and all that. And for whatever reason, I think a virus got through the site and crashed. And so
Come on, it was China.
So I wanted to partner with a reputable company that I didn't have to worry about the back end in terms of that. And so I thought about some different options. I thought about Medium, but Medium is kind of like a one-off thing, and I didn't really know if I was like how I would do that. And finally, I settled on Substack. There's some really good reporters that are out there that I follow that have covered the NFL. I see all the Green Bay Packers stuff back here. Bob McGinn covered the Packers forever. Ty Dunn came in and covered the Packers for a bit before he went out to Buffalo. And now these guys have a Substack where it's like they're not linked to a newspaper anymore. They're connected reporters who want to cover the NFL on their own terms. There's another one called True Hoop, which is fantastic. There's a lot of reporters who have just basically said, look, we have the content. We're not beholden to a newspaper. We're going to go shift to this. And so I researched it a lot. And then I researched, one of the things I really looked a lot at was the payment stuff. Because I mean, I'm taking a big risk. I'm asking people to give me their money, because I have to, because I got to replace thank you. I got to replace some income. I mean, I got paid, I got paid per story to go to the Northwest Indiana Times. You joked to me last night. You said I must be making the big bucks because I paid for travel to go to the game. Decisions are made by those who show up. You've got to show up. And so I've now that said, I went to Illinois State. I won't make it to Missouri State on Saturday. I'll put that game in the capable hands of Wyatt Wheeler, and I'll just steal all of his content.
Totally.
But for me, it was, I wanted to find a site that partnered with, and they partner with a company called Stripe that handles all the credit card stuff. It's $5 a month or $49.99 for the whole year. And they take a little bit of a cut because they do it. But again, I know that I'm protected. I'm not trying to ask people, hey, PayPal me or Venmo me or anything like that, because I wanted to have some professionals running the back end. And that's why I went with Substack. And I like the interface of the site. Every time I publish a story, it emails it out to people. So it's trial and error. I'm trying to think of like, should I publish multiple stories in a day? Should I just try to do one a day or every other day at 7 a.m. so people in a way can wake up in their morning coffee? They've got the victory bell right there with them.
I just would want to print it out and smell the newsprint. That's my problem.
That's the part, Harry, that like, I knew that I was going to walk away from the newspaper for probably 2 or 3 weeks before I actually did it. And I knew what my last story was going to be. And it was nothing ceremonial, really. It was a story about Valparaiso University's punter who is attempting to make it at the next level. And it just so happened that that's the way the calendar fell. And I remember the day that it came out, I went to the gas station, and I went and I found the newspaper rack and I looked at it, and I think it was a front page of the sports section story. And I just kind of stood there for a second and I said, I rang the bell in my mind at that point. I didn't buy that copy. I didn't want to get overly sentimental about that, but I looked at it and I to the Northwest Indiana Times. And I know that like some of the stuff I've said, I hope it doesn't come off as bad. I stood there and I just kind of said, thank you, because it was a huge chapter of my life that has given me the opportunity to start this next chapter of my life. I wouldn't have been able to do it without the legacy newspaper. But, so there's something romantic about newspapers. And I wish that things didn't go the way they did in terms of this, and COVID didn't help in terms of, the newspaper I was at, just the staffing just shrunk. And that's every newspaper. That's all over the place. And exactly. It's hard because that's gonna really overwork a lot of people and lead to burnout, which it did for me. And so, but now I'm revitalized.
We've revitalized the Victory Bell Substack.com. Like you said, you got to figure out, you got to work on that. But
Yeah.
I'm excited about it for you. Now, tell us what people can expect. Now, while you're telling them, I am clicking over, so I won't be looking at you anymore.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Here's looking at you, kid.
So what I want to tell people that are watching this what I'm doing. Paul's going to tell us about what you can expect at the victorybell.substack.com. While he's doing that, I'm going to join and become a subscriber, and I'm going to tell you if it's easy or if it's hard or what it entails. So, Paul, tell us about your site.
This is big, man. I hope that this is like that movie Steve Jobs when they're going to do their launch, and you just hope everything goes right, because if it does, you make millions of dollars, and if it doesn't, you fall on your face. Well, first of all, the victorybell.substack.com. Game coverage is free. I made a decision. I really thought to myself,
hold on, game coverage is free? What am I subscribing for? No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I'm going to tell you. So game coverage is free. It's the lifeblood of what we do. And my hope is that you care enough about the game coverage to want to know more about the people that are behind that game coverage. So the first day when I launched the site, I had two big stories. One was a 2,000 word feature story on Valpo's 3-point guards, Trevor Anderson, Preston Reedinger, and Darius DeVar. I'm always going to get his name wrong, Darius. And so all three of their fathers are coaches. And that would have been, maybe if we would have gotten it, maybe a 500 word story in the newspaper. I wrote a 2,000 word feature, and it was great, and it was cathartic, and I got to tell the whole story. And then Robert Washington, Valpo star football player, is prepping for a professional career, NFL, USFL, something like that, while also petitioning the NCAA for an additional year of eligibility. He's got that opportunity. And so that was a bit of a breaking news story with some layers to it. So that was another thing that I launched. Those were behind the paywall. Game coverage free, everything else, feature stories, exclusive Q&As. So I did a 5-question Q&A, and the hope is that every week I'm going to do a 5 questions with a member of the Valparaiso University Athletics community.
I've rung the bell.
You've rung the bell.
I've rung the bell. I've just had my confirmation email. I am now a subscriber to the Victory Bell.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Super easy, people. Like, listen, you're still listening to Paul about what he's talking about, but super easy. I did have to put on my glasses because I can't read my credit card without that. But super easy. I want to, because I was typing, I was listening, but it was, for me, game coverage free. But then this other stuff, and I just want to say this for people that are new, like I'm thinking UIC people that are starting to fall into the Missouri Valley Conference, right? Well, we might talk about that controversy in a minute. Or the Murray State
Yes,
or the Belmont people that are on the way. If you want to know about Valparaiso sports, but I'm a basketball guy, Valley Hoops Insider is all about college basketball and about the Ohio Valley and Missouri Valley conferences. Paul is an expert. What I mean by that is he's engaged, he's embedded, he knows the people, he talks to them deeply. You were talking about those stories you were breaking out about the guards and the punter and so forth. You're an insightful guy, and you do your work. And so those Murray State, Belmont people, UIC people, you need to get on his website. At least you get the game coverage for free, but get on there and subscribe, because you're going to get the blood and guts of stuff. And so anyway, tell us more about the punter. But I just want to say, A, it was easy. B, it was painless. C, I'm all confirmed.
Well, good. And so, no, another part of it is exclusive Q&As. And I guess a hat tip to Mark LaBarbera, and I know we'll get to this in a little bit, but he announced his retirement. What better way to launch a website than have in the second week, or really the first full week of it being out there, having the 18-year-long athletic director announce his retirement. And he's going to retire in a couple months. And so now, I mean, I got to put together here are the 5 potential candidate stories and all of that stuff. Right. And I mean, this is the stuff that makes, so I had a long talk with Mark, and again, Harry, it goes back to, I got a tip that this was coming the day before it was coming. And I was able to kind of, we don't write Betty White's obituary the day that she dies, you have that thing ready to go. And so I'd heard the rumor, and so I sat down at night and I put together a full long thing and his timeline and all the different accomplishments. And again, in print, that's a 500-word story with the breakout box, maybe. And here it was a 1,700-word story about,
so
and I feel like I might even shortchanged Mark a little bit by not doing 3,400 words.
Well, and let me just interrupt. A guy like Mark deserves all that, right?
Yeah,
the reader, there's as a consumer, I want stuff. Like, I want to read that stuff. But some of the people you and I get to hang out with and talk to and cover and report on, they deserve a full story really told. And so I so appreciate that.
And look, the way that I've looked at it is this. If we've gotten to the point where you're willing to pay $5 a month or $49.99 a year, you're going to want that stuff too. You don't want the Reader's Digest version of the story. You want the whole story. And so that's what I'm hoping to tell. So we did a story on that. I had it ready to go the second that they made the announcement. I didn't think the announcement was going to come that soon. And then I'm going to do these weekly Q&As where it's just going to be kind of 5 fun questions. And I kicked it off with that. And maybe it'll be, the head manager of the basketball team will be that, who knows, and so different stuff like that, where I just want, we're a people business, right? Like, it's about people. It's about telling people stories, but it's about telling people stories in a way that you have time to tell those stories. And like last night, again, the Valpo Illinois State game, when that game ended, you can't just sit there and be like, Valpo blew a 16-point lead. I got to summarize this and send a story right at the buzzer and all of that. I said on Twitter last night, I said, there's a lot to unpack with this one. Everyone sleep this off. And when the sun comes out, the story will be in your inbox. And so I got home and I sat down and I wrote till 3 a.m, because that's what it took to try to figure that out. And so I appreciate having more time to do it. And I got to be able to manage that a little bit better. I've had a couple 3:30 a.m. nights working on stories, but
I'm with you, Paul. This is about people. I just did an interview with Cooper Neese, the guard for Indiana State, and you're a writer. I wish I was a writer. I'm a talker, and I've done radio and TV like my whole kind of broadcasting career. So my thing was, I'm going to put the guy on YouTube. We're just going to rap, right? And,
can I tell a Cooper Neese story for a second?
Yeah, go.
I need to do this. I did this. I don't know if Baker and Vance's podcast is a competitor of yours, so I apologize.
They're friends.
I told this story on theirs, but I'm sure that you guys have some different audience. I get chills right now thinking about this. I don't really know Cooper at all. Cooper is the guy to me that committed to Butler and then at the last second decided he didn't want to do it and he ended up at Indiana State. I've never talked to him before. I've appreciated watching him, but like, this is the thing, right? You see these guys, you never really get a chance to talk to a lot of them. I mean, I know all the Drake guys. I've talked to them here and there, but so Cooper I've watched for a couple of years now. The other night against Valpo, Cooper and Sheldon Edwards are guarding, or Cooper is guarding Sheldon Edwards deep in the paint and aggressively guarding them, and they're getting into each other, bodies into each other and everything like that. And Sheldon's got to pass the ball out. When he does, he gets tripped up on Cooper's feet and he falls to the ground. The play is still going on, right? Shot clock's winding down. Now you got Sheldon Edwards on the ground. If I'm Cooper, I'm thinking, okay, I can go double team somebody because he's out of the play, and because there was like 3 seconds left on the shot clock or something. And no, Cooper bends over and picks up Sheldon in the middle of the play. Wow. Not like when the whistle blows and you run over and you help a guy up and all that stuff. In the middle of the play, he did that. And my jaw was on the floor because that tells you everything you need to know about a young man right there. And I asked Sheldon about it after the game and he said, look, his long answer ended with, we don't all know each other, but we all pull for each other and we all want each other to be better basketball players. And so it's interesting. You think about like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, did they hate each other? Did they push each other? They never would have been friends, all that stuff. I mean, Michael Jordan and Isaiah Thomas did hate each other.
Yeah.
And while I do enjoy that aspect of sports, what Cooper Neese did was amazing. And so kudos to him. And that was, and yeah, it was great.
But so my point, and I really became fond of him just talking with him. I just wanted to talk to him. So I set up an interview, and so I want to dialogue like this with people that I want other people to know, and I did an interview with Sheldon before the season, and
really it was a great interview.
Really enjoyed getting to know him. And I love the 5-question thing. Let me just say for folks that might be thinking about jumping onto your website. So I went there earlier before we started this interview, and it says, "Do you want to subscribe?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I want to subscribe, but I want to do it live on the podcast." And it says, "Read it before you buy it." So I got to sample it right before I could buy it, and I was like, "Okay, this is sweet. This is not like a lot of things where I've got to put down my money and then find out I don't like it, And so I saw there's a story about Mark. I'm pointing over there because it was on the left side of the thing. And the Q&A was below it. And I'm like, way to go, man. And like I said, Mark is the kind of guy that deserves long form, all of that kind of stuff. I'm sad he's leaving, just I enjoyed getting to know him just a little bit at a far distance, but a handful of conversations I've had with him.
Well, I mean, look, the guy that he followed, Bill Steinbrecher, was there for 25 years. I mean, as the athletic director, he was there longer. And so Mark came in 2004, and Valpo had just gone on this stretch with Homer Drew of making the NCAA tournament a bunch of times. And then Homer steps away, Scott Drew takes over, Scott goes to Baylor, Homer's back. There's a lot of fluctuation. And now the new AD comes in. And I'll tell you, I would imagine Valpo's not an easy place to be an athletic director at. It's a small Lutheran university that through Mark's leadership has went from the Mid-Continent Conference to the Horizon League to the Missouri Valley Conference. And that's impressive. And the one thing that people are going to get on Mark about, he knows this and he admits this, is that they never were able to close the door on opening the door on a new athletics recreation center. That requires a lot of money. I mean, look at Loyola. They had a guy come forward with $18 million. Like, you need that. You need that. And Valpo hasn't had that donor. But they have done a ton of stuff. They've got, if you read the story again, where LaBarbera announces his retirement, there's a whole timeline of stuff they did. They've upgraded so many different things. And a lot of things they had to upgrade were stuff that no one else has had to think about having to upgrade, in terms of making sure that all the women's teams had their own locker rooms. I mean, in 2004, everyone just shared one. Wow. It was like volleyball's in here in the fall, and then you're out of here, and then we'll put in, somebody else. The softball will go in there. And so he's done a lot. And I know that he'll get grief for not getting a new arena. I don't necessarily know. And also people are saying, well, he did the whole Beacons Crusaders thing, and that wasn't him at all. That was right. They did it, and he was tasked with implementing it. Don't kill the messenger. So I've really appreciated Mark a lot. I think, especially when you become AD at a school that has been synonymous with somebody else, with Homer Drew and with that family. I think that becomes a challenge, because you're not a Drew, and that has been the challenge for a lot of coaches at Valpo, Matt Loddick included, and that there's this perception that, well, that family is the first family of Valpo, and they're great, and they'll be in my heart forever. But I can't imagine how difficult it was to kind of navigate that landscape.
So I want to shift over to basketball a little bit. And don't forget, that's Paul Oren over there, the Victory Bell Substack.com. For now, we're going to figure out a way to shorten it, he says. So setting aside the overtime loss to Illinois State, two teams that are really messed up, meaning in terms of injuries and those kinds of things. And then they're going overtime, and they're both setting records for most overtimes in the season and all those kinds of things. Give me the state of Valpo basketball as best you can on February 9th, 2022.
It's hard. It's been a hard year, I think. And I will allude to a story that I will have coming out tomorrow where I talked to Ben Cricky at length after the game.
Perfect tease. You're the best.
Thank you. Thank you. I talked to Ben and I asked him a couple questions about kind of how the season's gone, and he had some really deep thought out answers that I'll share tomorrow. But they brought all these pieces in, Harry, and they're good pieces. They're really good, but they have not all played together. It takes time. There's no shortcutting the process.
Well, they've all been hurt or ineligible at various times. I mean, it's just been a mess of a year.
Yeah. So, I mean, you look at the top teams in the league right now. I mean, look at Loyola. Williamson has been there forever, and Norris and Hall and Uguak have all been there for a while. Missouri State, Gage Prim and Isaiah Mosley, and have been there together. They've played a lot of basketball with each other. The Drake kids have been there since they were in third grade. AJ Green was born on that court, I think. And so they all those teams have a lot of layered experience with one another. I'd put in a vacuum Valpo's talent up against any one of those teams. But you know, where do you want the ball passed to in your shooting pocket in order to get the right shot? That's something you got to learn with each player. And so as you learn that, it just takes time, right? Like how do you respond to this, whatever, and it takes time. And Matt Loddick said it last night. There have been stretches in every game where they've looked fantastic, and there have been stretches in every game where they have not looked good at all. And you saw that last night. I would say that, you know, it's weird to say this because they're 4-8 in conference, but the nature of this league and the nature in this world right now is everything that Valpo wants is still in front of them. It's going to be almost impossible now to avoid Thursday after that loss coupled with Bradley's win. I mean, it looks like the top 5 teams have separated themselves. Yep. And then you've got Southern Illinois.
Right.
Yeah. And Valpo lost both games to Southern Illinois. So any tiebreaker with Southern Illinois, Valpo loses that tiebreaker. And so what Valpo's going to have to do is, they'll hold tiebreakers over Indiana State. They're going to play 2 games against Evansville. They split against Illinois State. So now you're looking at everybody else, how it all groups together. But Valpo has proven, Matt Loddick has proven, you don't need to avoid Thursday in order to get to the title game.
Yep.
Which they did that a couple of years ago. And so everything that Valpo wants is still in front of them. Does anyone believe that they can make that run? Well, I'd imagine the guys in the locker room do, because they're basketball players and they brush themselves off and they pick it up and they get going. The tough thing is they lost Trevor Anderson. So now they got 2 freshman point guards that are out there. They started a walk-on who wasn't even going to play this year until we're midway through the season. That's fascinating. You want to get a kid on, Harry, that you're going to love. You get Preston Reedinger on the show. You're kind of guy. Darius as well. Both of them. Have them both on at the same time. These guys are great. And so this is the thing, like it comes down to people, right? And this is the hard part about this business is that I see the people from the outside who are want to tear it all down. They want Loddick gone. They want, hey, all the players are going to leave anyway. They do all the time. Let's just tear it all down. And I can hear that, but there's also the part of like, man, you got to look at somebody in the eye after a game like last night. I mean, the pain that was emanating from Ben Cricky last night, the somberness I watched from all these guys, and it's like, there's some humanity there that I don't cheer for Valpo, but I cheer for people. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm going to cheer for Cooper Neese for as long as that guy walks the earth. And so, you say this, what's the state of the program? I think they're hurting right now. I think that they thought that this would be easier, but they thought they'd have more success. And there's still a path, very, very slim path, but there's still a path to get to what they want to get to. And I think they'll die with their boots on, this team. They're going to be optimistic until the last shot.
When they brought in all those Big Ten guys and the Division II guy and talented players, guys that were going to contribute, and we've seen each one of them at various times do some outstanding things and accomplish some great things. but Anderson gone. Kithier hasn't played maybe in 4 or 5 games, and so they've been.
That's the killer. That's the killer right there. He's the quarterback of the offense. He's the quarterback of the defense. Everything moves through him. He calls everything out. He's a very, very intelligent IQ basketball player. They got to get him back, and it's a back injury, and so it's tough because if you have a broken arm, you can look at your broken arm. It's in a sling, it's in a cast, it's in whatever. Back injury, it's like every day you got to say, how do you feel? And every day you hope the answer is, let's go. I think they thought he was going to start the other day. I think they thought, and then he went through shoot around. He was on the court yesterday morning and tightened up, I guess. I don't know. I'm not really sure what happened, but tell me this: are any of those guys? Because a lot of them are seniors, according to the roster. Are any of those guys eligible to come back? All the new guys that they brought in. Yeah, that's a great question. Because I think we made this a lot harder than we needed to. I mean, some schools are listed. I mean, Bowen Bourne is listed as a freshman. Yeah. Well, he's a sophomore, and so Valpo's chosen to list their guys as the year they actually are, and then they might be able to get an additional year. It's just a complicated thing that is going to be annoying for a couple of years. Trevor Anderson is done. Kevion Taylor is done. Aaron Gordon is done. Those 3 guys for certain. Wait, Aaron doesn't get an 8th year? I know, it's tough. It's tough. Those 3 have exhausted their eligibility at the end of the season. Thomas Kithier will have an additional year of eligibility. Kobe King may be able to get an additional year of eligibility. I believe so. And I believe that Kobe wants to come back. And if Kithier and Kobe King come back, now, Harry, we're starting to talk about what I was saying earlier. Right. Here come some guys who have played with each other. Sheldon Edwards, 2 years in the program. You'd like to think that he'll come back. If he's braved 2 Indiana winters already, West Palm Beach, Florida yeah, come back. Can these freshman point guards grow? Darius and Preston. Okay, they're bringing in a big guy from a high school kid from Wisconsin, but my guess is that, they'll free up at least 2 scholarships or 1 scholarship, and it's attrition, so somebody's going to leave. I don't know who. And they'll hit the transfer portal like everybody is going to do. Okay. It'd be very rare to see a team build through high school players ever. I don't see it. I think certain programs, I talked to Ben Jacobson about that, and he just absolutely is. I'm going to do the way we've always done it. We're going to get high school kids, and we'll augment but virtually, I'd say 80% of the programs in America are doing exactly what you're talking about. I look at the portal. Listen, I need a power forward. I need to find a guy that's already been a power forward at this level, rather than hope an 18-year-old can become one. And I think one of the things about the transfer portal, and I know that it gets a lot of grief, but you look at a guy like Kithier, who maybe at Michigan State he was expected to do one thing: stand by don't ever leave 3 feet from the basket, and that's what you're going to do. And maybe and I'm just saying hypothetically. Actually, no, I'm going to go back. And Valpo had a guy named Bobby Capobianco a long time ago. He graduated in 2014. He went to IU for a couple of years, and they just used him to set screens. Big body, just used him to set screens all the time. And when he was an 18-year-old kid getting recruited, yeah, he fell in love with the candy striped pants and everything at IU, right? And then he decided he wanted to transfer, and he said, "You just look for different things when you're older. None of that pomp and circumstance stuff matters when you realize that it's about quality of life." And so I will say, despite the fact that Valpo struggled this year, I think if you were to ask any of these guys that came in here, they would tell you kind of how refreshing it's been. And maybe because it's not so much of a job at this level as it might be at the higher levels. And so I think Valpo's had some success. And then you get a guy like Kevion Taylor, who, kudos to him, because the guy bet on himself that Division II star, could he hack it at the Division I level? Guy was amazing last night. 26 points. He was fantastic. He's emerged as really their go-to guy. And he's a guy that when I watch, I think, man, he takes some shots that I'm thinking, what are you doing? And lots of them go in, They go in, yeah. Hey, before I let you go, it is thevictorybell.substack.com. I want to say it over and over so people don't forget. What do you think
Valparaiso be looking for in a new athletic director? How do they go forward from Mark?
Yeah, I was intrigued because the president, the relatively new president of the university, Jose Padilla, basically stated what he was looking for. He wants a former Division I athlete who has experience in Division I athletics administration. That's I mean, sounds like a great place to start.
Sure.
And so I think Valpo is a unique place. You know, you've got, I mean, obviously you got to fundraise because you got to be able to raise money to build some new arena or make renovations. I mean, look, I'm at the Redbird Arena last night. The place is amazing. You know, it's just a great place setup. And so you need someone who can hit the ground and pass the hat and do that sort of thing. Or you need to bring somebody in who then has a system to bring other people in to do that sort of thing. You know, other than that, I like the idea of bringing in someone who's played the game, who's played a game before, who's had that. You know, I'm curious. I'm working through my brain right now as to maybe who are some people with Valpo connections that would possibly be on that list that would kind of fulfill that stuff. And I think Harry, you'll be surprised to know that when I come up with that list, it will be on the victorybell.substack.com.
What? Really?
For paid subscribers. And yeah, so I'm excited to see this process play out. I've never really watched this process happen. Bill Steinbrecher retired 2 years after I graduated from undergrad at Valpo. I was away from the university, away from the town for about a 3-year period. And that was when that transition happened. So I never saw it take place in real time. And so I'm excited to see what's going to happen.
It's interesting that he talked about an athlete. You know, Belmont's athletic director was a basketball player at Belmont. Murray State's athletic director wasn't at Murray State, but he was a swimming and diving guy at another university. And so that, you know, you can see how that, you know, that might have a unique quality to it. It's thevictorybell.substack.com. For those of you that are new into the Missouri Valley and coming to our website, you've probably turned this off a long time ago. We talked so long. But if you're still there, Paul Oren is a great, not a good writer. And you need to jump onto his website. You'll get great content about Valpo and thus the Missouri Valley Conference as well. Paul, appreciate your time today. And I know we'll see each other in St. Louis here in a couple of weeks. And, you know, it's just the craziest. We could dive off into a whole nother category of those top 5 teams just killing each other right now. But we don't have time for that. But it's going to be fun to watch the top 5 fight and the bottom 5 fight for those relatively few positions. It's going to be a fun last 3 weeks of the season.
It's going to be great, right? And this is why we love what we do, why we do it, and all that stuff. And I can't wait. And Harry, thank you so much for what you do. And yeah, I can't wait to see you in St. Louis.
It'll be fun. That's Paul Oren, thevictorybell.substack.com. Go there and subscribe today. Thanks for watching. I'm Harry Schroeder, reminding you, since you've been there, make it a better place. We'll see you again real soon.